Hey book nerds, welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing the Thrilling Thriller book tag. This was created by Nicole from A Beautiful Chaos of Books. She didn't exactly tag me, but I found the video through Harriet Rosie and I adore thrillers, and I commented and Nicole was like, oh, you should do it, so I'm doing it. I'll link the original down below. I highly encourage you to check it out. I adore thrillers, I love Nicole's channel, and this is just a really fun tag. So the first question is, what is the last thriller that you bought? And mine is The Orchid Girls by Lesley Sanderson. This has got a really nice cover. I really like the fact that it's like divided down the middle, and it's also got really good reviews on Amazon. But the real reason that I bought this is because it's about three friends. It says one was in love, one lied, one died. 3 became 2. What happened that summer? And that's just everything I want in my thriller books. It's got it's about a close female friendships, and then one of them dies, and there's all secrets from the past, and yeah, it just sounds really good. I don't know when I'll read it because I'm trying to clear older thrillers off my TBR first, but I might not be able to resist, so hopefully I'll read it soon. The second question is, what is the thriller that you most recently added to your TBR? I add thrillers to my TBR all the time, but at the moment of filming it is The Birthday by Wyer. This is about, there's a birthday party and a 5-year-old girl goes missing. 2 years later she's found dead, but then another girl who attended that party goes missing. And then I think a third girl also goes missing from that party. So the entire mystery is about what happened at that party, why these girls are going missing and being murdered. I don't think I've read anything by Wyer, but I've seen her name around a lot recently. I've seen it a lot on Kindle, and we've also got a bunch of her books at work. So I felt like I should check her out for that reason. I think I can get this through Kindle Unlimited, so I'll get that at some point with my subscription. But again, I've got a lot of Kindle Unlimited books I need to read. The third question is, what is a thriller that you had high expectations for but ultimately it let you down? Mine is I Never Lie by Jody Sabral. This I got an arc of last summer and I thought it sounded really cool. It's about a journalist who's an alcoholic, and she's kind of been banished from TV, but she gets a second chance when a crime is committed near her house and she happens to be on the scene, and she films like a little news thing about it, and then they decide to give her her second chance and she gets to film all the news segments about the specific crimes that keep happening within this serial killer thing. My main problem with it is it says right on the cover, is she the victim or is she the culprit? And it discusses it a lot in the blurb, that there's the possibility that she's committing the crimes herself to further her career and she can't remember it because she's an alcoholic. This is not brought up in the book until 85% of the way through, so the idea of her being a suspect is meant to be a twist that happens near the end. And I just don't understand why it's on the cover and on the blurb when it's meant to be that way. So it's really disappointing because it wasn't the story that I thought I'd get. I don't even remember the actual ending, but I don't think it was particularly satisfactory. Yeah, it was just such a shame because it was a cool idea, and I do like stories where the main character may be doing the crime themselves, but this isn't it. It was just very disappointing. The next question is, what is a thriller trope you love and a thriller trope you hate? I've actually done 2 whole videos on this, so I'm going to link them both down below. But the thriller trope I think I love the most is intense female friendships, which I talk about all the time, but basically I really like it when the heart of the thriller is like a female-female friendship, mother-daughter relationship, sister relationship, and it's kind of hinged around the complexities behind that. I love stories like that, and I will almost always pick them up if it's got any elements of that to it. Trope I hate, there's a lot of tropes I dislike, and that's because they tend to be done badly. I think the one I hate the most is when the unreliable narrator trope is done badly, by which I mean when you don't know if things are really happening or not, that's when it bothers me. It's not necessarily whether or not the person is behind everything, but specifically when you don't know what you're reading is really happening or not, because for me I just switch off because there's no way to work out whether it's happening or not. So I just want to get to the end so I know the solution and then I can make sense of the story I've read. The next question is, what is a thriller that you think is underrated? The first one, I'm not sure how underrated it is. It's kind of got, I think people have heard of it generally, but that is The Last Mrs. Parrish by Constantine. So I adore this book. It kind of got overshadowed because The Wife Between Us is really, really famous. That's a famous thriller. And it has the same plot as The Wife Between Us. And I don't want to spoil The Last Mrs. Parrish, but at the same time, they're identical plots. So if you've read The Wife Between Us, you may think less of The Last Mrs. Parrish because you've already read that story. Whereas I think that The Last Mrs. Parrish came out first, but they came out so close together that they were clearly written at the same time. The Last Mrs. Parrish has, in my opinion, stronger characterization and a more interesting use of the twist that it does. So I prefer The Last Mrs. Parrish, and I think it's underrated because The Wife Between Us gets so much hype, and that is a really good book and I love it, but I think this one is better. The other one I want to talk about is an author, and that is Alex Marwood. I've got The Killer Next Door, which I'm demonstrating because that's my favourite one of hers. She's written to date 3 thrillers, and I love all of them. They're really entertaining. She does really strong characters. The plots are interesting and compelling. The Killer Next Door is my favourite one. That is about essentially a house of people, and one of them is a serial killer and you don't know which one, and you get chapters from the point of view of the serial killer, and you also get chapters from everyone else and you know who the characters are in those ones. But I just really liked the whole way it was done, and there was some twists in there. There's not a lot of twists, but there were some that I thought were really interesting. All of her books are really good. I would recommend starting with The Killer Next Door, but the other two, if they sound more interesting to you, pick them up. But I don't really hear anyone talk about her, and it's a shame because I really, really like her work and I really want to read more from her, and I don't think she's written, and she might be writing something at the moment, but I haven't seen anything from her for a while. But yeah, so I think she's very underrated. The next question is to you pick 3 thrillers, and I'm going to show them to you, and I want you to say which one you think I've read out of the 3. I'm just going to get my bookshelf. So I've tried to pick books that I haven't talked about on this channel, that I haven't hauled at anything, so these are all from ages ago. So we have The Child Garden by Catriona Macpherson, Cutter by Thomas Laird, and The Daughter's Secret by Eva Holland. These are the 3 books. I will list them down below in case you forget what they are. I'm not going to tell you what any of them are about, but I don't think I've talked about any of them on my channel. These are old books. I've had these for a long time. Next question is to recommend a thriller for a new reader, someone who hasn't read thrillers before. I would like to talk about Alex Marwood again. I think any of her books are a really good place to start with thrillers. The Killer Next Door, like I said, is the one that I particularly recommend. I would also like to bring up Ruth Ware. Again, The Death of Mrs. Westaway is the one that I've chosen. I would say maybe start with In a Dark, Dark Wood. It was her first book. It's kind of the most standard thriller. And she just writes really easy to read, really good but very simple thrillers. They're a fantastic place to start. My final recommendation is Mark Edwards, who I haven't really talked about on this channel before. All of his books are on Kindle Unlimited. They're all varying degrees of good. I've picked The Retreat, which is one of his newer ones. I got an arc of this last summer. Really liked it. That one is set in a Welsh house, and an author goes to this Welsh house for a writing retreat. Only it's the town that he grew up in, and when he grew up there, a child went missing, and he, as an adult, writes basically like Stephen King's It. So loads of people have always suspected him because he writes so much about missing children that he was involved in some way, even though he was a child himself. So he goes back and I think another child goes missing and he's trying to investigate what has happened. Again, it's a really standard thriller premise, really easy to read his works. They're on Kindle Unlimited, so if you have a subscription, it basically costs you nothing. If you don't, they're only 99p each anyway, usually. So yeah, those are 3 really easy to read authors that I think are fantastic introductions to the genre. Final question is, what is your favourite thriller of all time? And I have to say Misery by Stephen King. I never ever thought of this as a thriller until recently, even though it is the quintessential premise for a thriller. So if you don't know, an author has a car accident and gets rescued by a nurse who is his favourite fan. This nurse is a little unstable. He has just killed off his best-selling character because he hates her, and the nurse finds this out after she basically kidnaps him and holds him hostage, and then she demands that he writes a new book and brings this character back to life. And it's just this kind of really intense play-off between these 2 characters, and I just think it's really good, and it's one of my favourite books of all time, and it is my favourite thriller of all time. I actually struggled. I wasn't going to bring up Misery again because I do talk about it quite a lot, but I couldn't think of any thrillers that I would recommend as my favourite thriller. As much as I love the genre, I don't think that books tend to stand out much in that genre, at least not for me so far. So maybe, hopefully, I'm being more selective now about the thrillers that I choose to read. Hopefully by the end of the year I will have some really good new favourite thrillers. So yeah, those are all of the questions. The final thing is to tag some people. All the people that I would have tagged, Nicole has already tagged in her first video, so I'm not going to tag anyone for this because the people I could tag otherwise I don't think they really read thrillers. If you haven't done this tag yet, then by all means do it. I would love to see people do this. If you do thriller videos on your channel as well, let me know because I'm always looking for more thriller people to follow. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, it helps me out massively, and I hope to see you next time.